Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of our podcast. Got some cool topics for us to talk about. John, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, at least to any console gamers, that is to happen recently is Phil Spencer's little interview he just did, where he's talking about the future of Xbox and the future of gaming being upgradable and modular, for lack of a better word. Um, he talked about a lot how Xbox is currently, I mean, you buy it and even when you buy it, it's honestly subpar compared to what you can get with other components, other PCs, and just the capabilities that it has. So he's been talking about its ability to upgrade. So maybe a year down the line, you improve the performance of your Xbox. So he has essentially suggested that every console gamer turn to a PC gamer. Um, I mean, that's, at least in my opinion, half the allure of Xbox gaming is it's all inclusive. You buy it, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to switch out a GPU in 2 years. You just have your gaming console, and that's that. There are those, there are those compromises you make where, yes, you're not going to be running things in 4K at 60 FPS, but you're also not paying $2,000. You're paying 300, 400, or like 500 at launch. So I mean, that's essentially it. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because it's when you buy a console, you sort of know it's kind of like like a McDonald's or a Starbucks. Is it the greatest food in the world? No, but no matter where you're at, it's always going to be the same. You don't need to worry about upgrading because the GPU is not good enough. You don't need to get a new monitor or whatever piece. You know that when you have an Xbox, it's going to work until you need a new one. And so, sort of going this direction, it seems to go counter of what they've done with, or sort of like what the entire console market has been built off of.
Yeah, I guess my question is like, what's really the big difference between console gaming and PC gaming? Like, really, if you think about it, it's essentially the same thing. You just play a little bit different games and have a little bit more variety of games available to you, and you have a system that's entirely dedicated to gaming. But that's I mean, other than that, and then you play with a controller rather than like a mouse, right? But like other than that, it's pretty much the same idea, right? I mean, it's not by accident that console gaming, the grandparents of it or the forerunners of it were PC games, right? And PC. So to me, it makes sense. And I know for me personally, it's always been kind of annoying to, every I don't know how many years each life cycle is, every 8 years or so, you have to go and buy a new console. So to me, as like a gamer, I mean, I would be fine with it for the most part. I think it makes sense to me. So I don't know.
I mean, I think the big area where I see problems, and I think back to the early days of the Xbox 360, was when you had the core and like the Pro edition or whatever it was called, and one was sold without the hard drive, and you always heard developers say, "Well, we can't make the games that we want to make because we don't necessarily know if everyone's going to have a hard drive," and so it got really difficult for like how the games um, were being made. And I wonder if that's going to be another problem again. Is that like, um, do you are only certain games going to work if you have a certain upgrade? What happens? Is are all of the pieces going to be together? So like, if you do a GPU upgrade, does it also increase the RAM or whatever? Or can you buy
Hmm.
them like separately? And so does that then cause an even bigger issue with, you know, you have some pieces but you don't have others, and then to me, there's also just the practical side of it. Just like, how are you gonna do it? Because I've seen some external GPUs that are used in like laptops or whatever, but where you can kind of like just plug them into like a dock or whatever. But it just
Hmm.
seems like there's some like practical challenges with the way that the average user, the three of us wouldn't have any problem, but I imagine a parent with some young kids or whatever trying to do this, and I you can see a lot of expensive hardware getting broken pretty easily.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's where the biggest issue is, because, like for example, my nieces and nephews are currently at their ages, they're like huge in Minecraft and huge in, I guess, party games is the best way to put it. And right now, I mean, you can run Minecraft on a tablet. You don't need anything fancy, but eventually they're going to, as they get older year by year, they're going to get more into more graphic intensive games, or more games that are going to be using more online components, more power. And so every year they get older, like every birthday, you have to buy them a new component so they can play a new game. I mean, Spencer, if I remember right, in his interview said that they would find a way to where you wouldn't lose out on games. They'd be backwards and forwards compatible, but that's just not realistic, because there's going to be a divide at some point, and you're either going to be playing this new game at 15 FPS, or you're going to be buying a new, a new GPU or whatever it may be. And furthermore, what's the point of having a console? I'll just buy a PC where I can do a lot more with it.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't even make sense to me at that point.
Yeah, and is that like, are you only going to be able to buy like Microsoft branded parts, or is there going to be like an EVGA or whoever, any of the other, I'm spacing on all the graphics cards companies, but like,
Yeah.
is it only going to be Microsoft branded? And then at that case, what if the prices are ridiculous? There's pretty standard prices for the different tiers or whatever for like Nvidia and ATI. So is Microsoft going to add a 10% increase? Then yeah, you just go back to PC and I can just get it at a normal price.
Seriously, I can plug a controller into my PC without a problem, and you download a controller map. It takes a minute or two to do that.
Yeah, and then I think the point that Phil made.
Goblin.
Ooh. I think the point that Phil made that's smart, or that I kind of agree with, is just the way that the consoles become so out of date after a while. I mean, I get that, like we've all seen it. We're almost already seeing it now with the Xbox One, that it may not be able to like run many of the games that are coming out, but why don't they just do it on the front end and make them more powerful from the beginning? Like we kind of saw that with the Xbox One. It came out with a pretty weak overall performance. And
it was outdated day one, basically.
Yeah, and it was so, they made a big stink about using the cloud servers and all that kind of stuff, but it just seems like you'd be better served putting the money or making it a little bit more expensive on the front end, and just, I don't know.
Well, I mean, looking kind of through the veil as well as to what just the long-term plans are. I mean, he's been trying to bridge that divide with buy Quantum Break on Xbox One, you get it free on PC as well. So I'm honestly, the more we're kind of talking about it, I'm starting to wonder if the plan is just, at the end of the day, to have a Microsoft gaming PC, like a Microsoft Steam box.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I was thinking of when I was reading, like, going through all this. I was like, this just sounds like a Steam box, where you can just buy pre-made consoles and you don't have to worry about it. You can pick your price point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You essentially pick how good you want the games to look and pay for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can go in and be like, oh, I'm not gonna pay my kids. I'm not gonna buy the $1,000 for my kids, but I don't know. It's just weird, because then I just don't see. I guess it just comes down to, I don't see the average person understanding it.
Yeah, I agree.
They just want a computer that works, or in this case, a console. They don't care about processor speeds and all that kind of stuff.
Plug and play. You don't have to download drivers when graphics aren't working the way they should. You don't have to deal with all that crap.
But I would think that, I think gaming is such a mainstream thing now that I think there's more and more people that have a more technical understanding of those types of things. So I don't know if like the threshold for that would be maybe as high as we think it is. Maybe for like a first timer, and if they're trying to draw in new people into gaming, yeah, I could see how that would be daunting and it wouldn't work. And I think that's always kind of been the problem with PC gaming. Like for me, I've never just been that interested in building some supercomputer because I just don't understand the technical aspects of it, right? Like I understand the basics of it, and I can go out and buy a computer and be like, oh, like this will work, this won't work for my gaming, right? But if I'm gonna go build like a high-end machine or even try and buy one, like I wouldn't know anything, I wouldn't know anything. I don't even know where to start. I'd be on Google for 2 or 3 hours, right? And so I don't know. I guess I don't foresee it being that big of a problem. And I can definitely see where, I don't know, because like we kind of talked about, oh, well, you're just going to be buying new hardware all the time, but and trying to upgrade it. And you're like, if you have kids that are going to be playing, they're always going to be like, Mom, Dad, why can't I get like this new hard drive so I can play these new games? And but I think that's like already part of the problem though, right? Like I know so many kids, like young gamers that want to play and they do play, but they're stuck on an N64 or like an original Xbox or because that's what their parents got them way back in the day, and their parents can't afford to get them anything new, and they're just kids and they're not to the point yet where they can afford stuff, and that stuff's super cheap still, right? So even users on the Xbox 360, I know a ton of my friends still go and play on the Xbox 360 and Call of Duty because they can't afford to buy an Xbox One to get the new ones, right? So I don't know. I think that's like always. I think inherently that's just always going to be a problem with technology, and it's always been a problem with video games. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like any better of a solution just to stick with the console model or to try something new, like they're talking about where you can upgrade it. And my personal opinion would be to lean more towards the upgrades because that to me would seem a little bit simpler than trying to buy a new console all the time, right? So I don't know, especially if there's backwards compatibility, which would make a
And
lot of
I
sense.
think that's where the Steam Box idea could come in, where it's, for anyone who doesn't know, they're basically just Valve kind of pre-builds with
Home
partners.
theater PCs, basically.
Yeah, they kind of set the standards, and then Alienware, whoever can make their own, and you can just purchase them through the third party. And I don't think they go that sort of uncontrolled, but I could see kind of, John, like what you were saying, is that this sort of modular, multi-tiered offering that there's a certain, like, this is the standard, and maybe that's like if you use the Xbox One, like maybe the entry level Xbox One, and then above that, has a better processor or more RAM or whatever, and it more acts more like a high end, like the PCs that we're on now would be one that you could purchase, and I think that may be an interesting route to go, where you're sort of offering the Xbox product but at multiple price levels. And I think it get to what you were saying, Mark, where because I definitely could see, early on, it's like the VR conversation we're having, is that, the early adopters are always going to pay the most money, so you have a bunch of people lagging behind. And I think if you sort of offer maybe a, downgraded experience as a base level that's a lot cheaper, you can get more people in quicker. And then for people like us, we may be more willing to pay for the higher end that maybe does have a bit more openness to it. So you could go out and be like, oh, I'm going to go get the new Xbox, Xbox graphics card or whatever.
Well, I do want to kind of respond to one of Mark's points as far as pricing and upgrading being more feasible. I think we have a different perspective than you do because we have actually built gaming PCs and are familiar with what these things actually cost. Like, for example, you're wanting to upgrade a GPU. For me to marginally upgrade my upper mid tier of GPU cost me $350. Now, it's not like just because it's going to be in a console format that all of a sudden the price of GPUs is going to go down to $80. Like, it's just not realistic. And that goes the same with RAM. 16 gigs of RAM is, depending on what you get, $80 to $100. New CPU, an 8-core CPU is $300.
Yeah, well, I guess I understand that, but like I think the problem is though, it's like, okay, take the Xbox One and the Xbox 360 for example, right? I have all these Xbox 360 games and controllers and all these, like, even just like the controllers and things that cost me a ton of money. All right, if I have four controllers and I spent money to get the extra ones to get four, and then the next Xbox comes out, now I have four Xbox 360 controllers that are no good, right? So there's more to like the cost of getting a new console than just, oh, I'm getting like an upgraded GPU and upgraded graphics and things like that, right? So, and I think that's what I've always found so frustrating is it's like you get a system, you get really into gaming on it, you get all this stuff, and then a few years later the next console comes out and none of it's any good and you got to start all over again, right? So that's where I can see like the appeal for me is more just like, hey, let's just keep it simple. I know I'm going to be using the same machine for, however long, and I just have to spend $350 to upgrade to the next generation of games and what they're going to be doing, right? So I think that's part of it for me as well.
And
But
I think that gets to, I'll preface this saying I realize the prices are totally different, but like, you look at, just like cell phones or whatever, every year there's a new one and it's just different enough that you gotta go buy another case. Or I remember like way back when like every phone had its own proprietary like charger, so you had like, does this one work? No. Okay. And, then everyone eventually went to micro USB or whatever Apple's using. But
Lightning.
yeah, Lightning, and yeah, I was thinking also that the 30 pin or whatever. But
USB-C.
I think Mark, to your point, I think that's like I think that's a larger issue is that there isn't a lot of that. Well, actually, the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 actually kind of got around that, right? You could use controllers from one on the other, or at least forward compatible. You could use a PS1 controller on it. But like, I think that's nowadays with Bluetooth. I don't understand why you can't just have one Microsoft Xbox controller.
They don't make money from making
Well,
controllers
yeah.
forward compatible.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the. I think that's the part we've danced around a little bit is that there's and
Well,
it almost just thinking about it, it almost acts as like a season pass for your console. Microsoft makes their money off of software. They get a certain cut. So if they're able to sit there and be like, well, let's actually add an ability to make money off of the cost of the console as well, then I think that for them is a big bonus. It's another, revenue stream outside of relying on developers who, can be fickle.
yeah, I mean, my thought at the moment is, though, is the solution completely reinventing the way consoles are handled and looked at, or is the solution just making controllers compatible and making, Bluetooth recompatible with other things? I mean, I could very easily use the same like USB wireless dongle I use for my 360 controller on my PC for an Xbox One controller. Like, it's just there. They just don't do it because they can make money. So they're not going to all of a sudden like change their mindset either and decide that they don't like getting cheap little bits of revenue that everyone has to get. Like, they're gonna find another way to do that.
Yeah.
Why not just make what we have better instead of trying to create something new and hope that it's better long term?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I just see a lot of logistical problems too. That's really where I come back to. It's just I just feel like it's just unless you sell it. I mean, I think also like because the N64 basically had this with the expansion pack. Remember that?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there, you saw certain games, and I think back then they included I think I remember in Donkey Kong maybe it was included. But I could just see an issue arising later on where it's just like, kind of like I was saying, like if it's just the graphics card, that's one thing. But if it's like, the RAM is upgradable and the processor is upgradable, like where's the,
Not ready yet.
how do they prevent you from upgrading one but not the other, or
And then you got the new GPU and the CPU, so you need some extra cooling. You need this new fan mod
Yeah.
as well. Like there's so many more components to a PC than there are accessories to a console.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when I
Like,
upgraded my processor, I had to get a whole new motherboard for it.
Motherboard.
Yeah. You know.
well, I think that's where if they did something like that, it would need to be modulated, where it was just like, here's the next like add-on attachment, and all you do is you remove whatever like package or module that you had on there, and you put the new one in, and you're set and you're ready to go. And I don't know how they would do that, but it would have to be. And I guess in my mind, it would have to be something simple and convenient like that for it to be a viable option to go that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's also where I'm. That's the only way I could see them making it work as well, is if it's completely modular, where it's like just almost plug and play. Otherwise, I have a hard time seeing it being. I don't know. And then I just think, like, what happens if somebody opens it and they kind of poke something the wrong way? It just seems like there's a lot of extra engineering that's going to have to go into it to make it kind of make it idiot proof.
Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
Best of luck to them in that.
Yeah.
But I think like a lot of these same kind of things though apply to a lot of kind of the cutting edge stuff that people are trying to do, right? Like a lot of this is pretty similar to our conversations we've had about the VR systems, right? It's the cost, it's the whole I have to get this huge new goggle set, and what was we were looking at where they have the light boxes that project into your rooms, like move around your room, and if you don't have a room big enough, then it doesn't work. It's like it just seems like all this extra stuff, and it's just so much more complicated, and the cost of it's just so expensive, right? I think, that's just what, and it's just gonna make it tough for game companies, like Xbox and PlayStation. It's gonna make it tough to really change fundamental ways of doing things, and I think VR is not so much of a fundamental change, but in a lot of ways it is at the same time, and and that's where I kind of worry about. Is it viable? And those same conversations we've had. So it would be interesting to see if any of those would work out. But
I don't know. I think really at the end of the day, the thing that's going to cause Microsoft to either try it out or not is the success of Steam boxes. And if I'm honest, I'm pretty ignorant on those. I haven't really seen what's happened with them, if anything, so far.
I don't know. I haven't. Not exactly in the market for one, but I mean, the concept behind him is pretty cool. It's basically, I want a gaming PC, and then you just go buy one. You don't have to sit there and. I mean, it's not too
Plug
different
wires
than,
into a motherboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too different from, what. Wow, shoot, what's the Alienware or whatever? It's basically what they're doing, but I think. The benefit there is that it's streamlined in the sense that it's designed specifically for gaming.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
It runs, I think, some custom version of Linux on Steam OS or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't, it sounds like it's still pretty far in the future. So I guess we wouldn't see it until the next Xbox is out. But I mean.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, Nintendo is expected to be coming out with their new one. Like, they're already sort of abandoning the Wii U.
NX should, I think, come out this year.
Yeah, is that what it's called? The NX code name,
Yeah.
at least. Yeah. So I mean, I think, I do wonder if Microsoft may sort of be like, yeah, we're gonna kind of like, we're gonna. Kind of reset everything and go for another generation, especially with the next gen of GPUs is supposed to be pretty some big increases in performance. Maybe they're like, let's just end the and I remembered his name, Dan Matrick. I was trying to talk about him last week. I just could not remember his name, but he was the one who was like, yeah, it's a entertainment video TV thing that also happens to play video games. So if Phil Spencer is really driving the bus, maybe they just sit around and be like, yeah, well, we messed up this time around, and sort of mulligan it.
I don't think that's necessary per se, but I very much appreciate Phil Spencer bringing Xbox back from the abysmal atrocity it was when it launched, and
Yeah.
the
Oh
vision it
yeah.
had. But I mean, with him even giving like free Xbox or free Windows ports of Xbox games,
And can I
like
just,
he's
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Can I just
yeah, go
say
ahead.
I love that idea because there's been so many times where I've been like looking at a game and I'm like, I want to get it on both. And I'm like,
Hmm.
why do I have to, it's the exact same game. I just want to be able to play it on, I'm not asking for cross platform playing or whatever. I just want to be able to
Ugh, none of that.
have it on Xbox and not have to spend, $120 to get it also on PC.
It's brilliant. But kind of, I'm very much on board with it too. By the way, I mean more games. I know there's like an outcry of people that are pissed about it, but
Which
it's
I
more
don't
games and
get.
it's more ways to
Why?
play them.
It's free
Yeah,
games.
people. It's just internet culture, man. Outrage culture. But I think by doing that, the way that it's looking is that I think one can kind of assume that it's going to lead to all the games that are currently like Xbox exclusive or at least get a huge launch window on Xbox before PC are going to see that diminish. And once that's the case, I'm not going to be paying money for a living room PC when I have a gaming PC. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I guess I'm kind of curious. Would anyone here, I mean, what are your thoughts about actually doing it? If you say the entry level was what at a launch Xbox usually is, it's like a $500 price point, and they say that this is good now, we'll maybe assume it's like upper middle tier, so it's still a little bit better than a normal launch console, but in about 18 months, it's gonna see performance issues unless you upgrade it. Like, would you guys buy into that?
Man, that is a tough
I don't
sell for
know.
me.
But see, that's kind of how I've always seen PC gaming, though, to be honest. Like, that's kind of one of the reasons I always strayed away from it. And the only real reason I got into it with, like, Diablo 3 and StarCraft 2 is because I really wanted to play those games, but I knew I could buy, like, a PC or, whatever my system was going to be, and I could play those games, and they were going to be around for a long time, and it was going to be worth my investment. But in the past, at least from my perspective, if I got into PC gaming, I was gonna get one good game, and then 18 months later or 9 months later, there was gonna be another game that came out that I would want to play, and it was just gonna be just a little bit better, and I needed a little bit more on my computer, but the little bit more, like you mentioned, John, earlier, was gonna cost me $350 to upgrade to, and then and even if it was just the one part, 9 months later, 18 months later, I have to upgrade again. And then I have to upgrade my whole system. I have to upgrade my fans. I have to upgrade everything. And it just wasn't, I don't know, I just couldn't keep up with it. So, I mean, I can definitely see where that would be a problem. Um, but I don't know if they provided like a base amount of games for each like tier or however you want to think of it, or each upgrade, then I could see myself going for it because then I'm guaranteed to have some awesome games even if I don't upgrade. But if I do, then I get more awesome games. But it's not like I'm gonna be missing out and be stuck playing by myself on one game, right? And miss out on all the other ones. So I don't know. I mean, I'd really have to see kind of how they structured it. But I guess I'm more open-minded to it than maybe you two are. But
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking about it, if it was like, halfway through its life cycle. So let's just say 2 years after launch, 3 years after launch, they were like, there'll be an upgrade kit. I could maybe see that, and if it's $100 or whatever, and I think it depends on the price. Like I guess that's where I come down to where I struggle, because it's like if it costs $500 on launch, and then I have to spend another $200. I mean, you're almost all the way to a PC.
Yeah.
well, so then let me ask you this though. So why are you hesitant with this, but on virtual reality systems, which cost more money, and would probably run into the same problems eventually. I mean, everything would run into the same problem eventually, but
Chest on me,
why,
by the
why
way.
would you be more open-minded of dropping, $800, $400, $500, however much it is for a VR system, whatever one you go with, compared to something like this?
I mean, I think, yeah, for me, it's a different experience. And if I'm already going to be putting the money into a PC that even without the headset, if I put $1,000 into it, it's going to basically play anything on market at essentially the highest level. So then adding on the headset is going to be a bonus to that. Whereas I see this sort of running it as like an add-on, or not even an add-on, but like a necessary upgrade. Like it just seems like you're raising the bar of entry just later in the process, or you're putting in like a paywall basically. Like, yeah, you spent $500 in 2016, but this Christmas you got to upgrade. Just seems
Yeah.
kind of. It just seems counter to what console games like seem to be about, in my opinion. To me, like John, like you said, it is turn on, plug in, and it just runs. You don't need to download anything. You don't need to troubleshoot any, like, I don't have any sound. Why is there no sound? Or like, why is my
Mm.
performance low? Like the developers have already done that because they're working off a single reference. And so changing it so that there's, possibly two different variants, it just seems to run counter. But it's just kind of weird. I was thinking about it, like this isn't really even the only industry that this is happening. And I'm thinking of like Tesla, like, they push out updates. Who
Firmware updates for your car.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the people who
Oh
like,
man.
um, you know, they bought their Model S or whatever, a year ago, and they wouldn't have known that now they'd have an autonomous car.
Yeah.
I mean, I
True.
think, but then again, that's just a software update. It's not a hardware update.
Yeah, very large categorical difference between
Yeah,
those.
I think it's just the hardware, because like you've seen Microsoft add features through the dashboard updates and stuff, and that makes sense, but nothing at the hardware level, because that's kind of inherently on the user. But yeah, I mean, it'll be
Well,
interesting. I don't expect anything this. I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now somebody looks back at like the interview and they're like, "Hey, remember when Phil Spencer said this?" and everyone kind of laughs about it. Like, but I think
yeah.
that he said it so openly seems to me to kind of suggest maybe they are thinking about it seriously, and not just as like a drunken night in Redmond. We're like, dude, what if we did this?
Yeah. They're trying to kind of do the PR test extremely early, which isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, you can just
Um,
get some free marketing or free market research.
Yeah. I mean, with me, honestly, the biggest issue is that if they go full bore with that, there's no reason for me to have both. Like, I have my PC and I'm gonna be good there. Like, right now, they provide enough of a different experience to where I have no problem having both, and I have no problem accessorizing both or upgrading my PC. But if it's just like, yeah, have a gaming PC, here's another,
Yeah.
except this one has a Microsoft symbol on it. I don't care. I don't need another one.
And then that gets to like the walled garden. Like, if you're having to make a decision between the two, then I'd probably go with. I mean, even though we're running Microsoft systems, like I'd probably go with the gaming PC because
Hmm.
there's no restrictions there if I want to install something or mod something or whatever.
A lot more you can do with it.
Uh huh. Yeah, I mean, you can use it for work. You can use it. Some people probably use theirs as more of like a media PC as well. So.
Yeah, I know many people that have media PCs. It's not uncommon. So it's like tapping into creating a market that already exists,
Yeah.
kind of.
But
I don't know. It's interesting concept, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense for people that are heavy gamers that probably have a PC, and I think it creates an issue for people that aren't heavy gamers and don't want to deal with all that BS of having a PC.
yeah, I'm sure they can figure out a way to make it work. It's just what that way is, and I think you and I definitely don't see it. I think Mark is definitely more open to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's because you and I have come from that sort of DIY background with computers, whereas Mark doesn't, you know. But
Yeah. No, that's fair. I don't disagree with you there.
but so the other big news this week was like a little bit of corporate intrigue with I guess Vivendi, but they used to own or have a big purchase or like owned a big stake of Activision Blizzard, but they sold out of it. They're now trying to like a hostile takeover of Ubisoft, which
Yeah.
I mean I don't pretend to be a huge like oh yeah, let me just tell you what this means, but like it just kind of seems interesting because like Ubisoft is like whoa. I don't know how to pronounce their name, the Guillemot family.
Your guess is as good as mine there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm butchering it, so if anyone knows, I'm sorry. But it seems like because they own, there's Ubisoft and then Gameloft are the two. I think Gameloft's a mobile gaming company. Seems like there's a bit of a freak out on their part, and maybe even like a like a hint that they may go nuclear and sort of break up the company.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wonder what that would mean though, because I don't know what Vivendi's influence on Activision Blizzard really was.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's far back enough that I don't honestly remember it, but I think the biggest part of that issue is that they are not a gaming company. They are a conglomerate who their only concern is to make money. And I feel like if they go back to that, that's just going to take Ubisoft back from the progress they've started to make with the changes to their release schedules and things.
Yeah.
It's going to be like an Assassin's Creed every 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Because they can pump money out. They're not going to necessarily concern themselves with the creative direction or the creative integrity of a game or game series.
Yeah, and I think that's, as much as we sort of rail on Ubisoft for being, releasing yearly Assassin's Creeds or whatever, but like they also have been a pretty open company about like kind of pushing boundaries in terms of gaming. Like I don't think you see the same level of innovation at a high level AAA, massive publisher at Ubisoft that you do at an Activision or an EA. So I would be really curious to see if that goes away, because Vivendi is sort of like, hey, we need to spend money on what works, not like this kind of cool idea you guys had. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a little like, at first I was like, yeah, whatever, it's a hostile takeover, but then like the more I thought about it, I was like, this could, would you get an Assassin's Creed 2 because Assassin's Creed 1 wasn't that great? Or would they be like, it's not worth money, make another Tom Clancy game?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a great example because the first Assassin's Creed, it was great in concept and had a cool story, but it wasn't an altogether great game. But Assassin's Creed 2 and the two that followed it, which was Revelations and Brotherhood, I believe.
Brotherhood first, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those were phenomenal games, and I could, as you said, I could easily see someone pulling the plug and saying this game, this Assassin's Creed, as you call it, just did not work.
Yeah.
And I think they may prevent a game like that from ever going out, because Assassin's Creed was fairly controversial in all the religious aspects and weight it had to it. Like, I could easily see a game that's just, or a studio or a company that's concerned about money and appearance just saying, no way, we're letting that out.
Well, I mean, and it was a pretty just from the game perspective, it was pretty unique. Like, a lot of people saw it. They're like, "Whoa, what is this?" I mean, it's hard to think of it now, but not every game was a GTA clone back in the day. And you saw this of this guy walking through the crowds, and this whole idea of like social stealth. What's this? Now it just seems commonplace. It's in half their games now, but yeah, back in the day, it was like, whoa, like this is new, this is cool. But
I don't know. I think I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I think like the simple statement I would say is game companies should be ran by game developers, right? Like, and
yeah, if I could snap, I'd be snapping right
but
now.
but like I kind of think through the lens of sports a lot, just because I watch a lot of NBA basketball and things like that. And one of the problems is with what happens with bad organizations in professional sports is when you get an owner of the team that like thinks they know basketball and they think they know, how the team should be ran and how things should be within the organization, but they're really just a businessman, right? And so they get in there and they take over and they do all this stuff and they change all this stuff and it never works out and it turns into this huge mess because they don't let the people within the organization that are basketball people do their jobs and handle the basketball side of things, right?
You're talking about
And you
Howard
see that
Schultz and the
over
Sonics,
and
right?
over and over
Dan
and over.
Schneider.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's the danger, right? But you also do see on the flip side, and the counterpoint to that would be you do see organizations that are ran and owned by people like that, but that don't have any clue about basketball or how things work, but they hire the right people that do know it, and then they let those people do their job, right? So I don't know, like if they come in and they take over, and then they let the people do their job, and continue to do what they're good at, then I don't think there's a big problem with it, right? But if they come in there and they're thinking, oh, we're gonna, like you're saying, we're just gonna focus on profit and what works, and we're not going to take any big risks, then I think you have a serious problem there. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think just based on the way they're approaching this, that it's a hostile takeover at all, they're not going to be passive. I mean, they're already showing their colors and they're willing to be aggressive to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think all of a sudden once they win, they're going to be like, all right, we got it. Let's crack a cold one. Let's just hang out, guys. I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree. I think it that they're so, because it looks like this has been going on for a year, but it's really sort of kicked off in the last like couple days or so.
Percentage by percentage, they've been getting them.
Yeah, so it definitely looks like they're not just kind of being like, oh well, I mean, obviously there's probably their own profit motives there, but
Of course.
it does look like they're pretty worried about it. And I think a lot of it also, I just don't know what like Vivendi did with Activision. I don't remember
Yeah.
what was his name. Kotick, is that the guy at Activision? Is it Bobby Kotick? He was like the chief. I don't know
I
if
don't
he's still
know.
there anymore. He was back during the prime days, but like, I remember him. I don't know which side of the house. I feel like he was Activision, so I just don't know if Vivendi's like, yeah, we're just gonna take your profits, or if they had like a serious involvement in the game making process. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm speaking ignorantly because I don't really remember anything about it, but based even just on the little nugget that Activision paid almost, it was like 6.8 billion, if I remember the article right, to get out of Vivendi's yoke isn't a good sign to me.
mm-mm.
that's a good point.
And that they're so eager to jump back in,
Yeah.
and not in a partnership, but as we are just going to buy you.
You didn't want us to buy you, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that turns out. It's just, I mean, maybe it ends up being nothing, but I think as many complaints as you can rightfully lobby at, or not lobby. Why would you be lobbying a game company? But as many times as you would have a valid complaint against Ubisoft, I think that they're still one of the better developers and publishers out there. And I think
Oh yeah.
it would be kind of disappointing if that's lost because of the takeover.
Oh yeah. I mean, love them and hate them, and the Unity rather, and Watch Dogs is obviously a snafu, but I mean they've done a lot of good too, and brought a lot of good games.
Yep. But
Hey, maybe they're just trying to make Activision great again, right?
it's like an ex-girlfriend. You're trying to make him really jealous. Look how
Or
good
maybe they're
games-
maybe they're just an arm of Donald Trump, and they're just trying to make it great again.
God. They're just just gonna build a wall on the north border.
Wouldn't super surprise me, man.
But all right. So this is my little like pet topic, and it's so last Friday marked the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, which,
Woo!
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like that was,
I wish I could do that.
I mean, that was childhood right there.
Yeah.
Hey, I still have my my Pokemon cards.
Oh,
As
man.
do I.
I think they got lost in a move at some point. So
You maniac.
And you're the one that's saying you're the big Pokemon fan, huh? You got rid of all your Pokemon
it wasn't
cards.
me. It wasn't me. But yeah, no. I mean, I still remember when I was a kid. So I don't know the exact age. But I'd finally gotten a Game Boy Color, I think, and got Pokemon Red. And I just remember spending like the entire afternoon just playing it, and it was just like I'd never played anything like it, and I think I was just like, what is this? This is amazing, and then you find out like, oh, these other people have it, and then you're finding the game link so that you can link the two together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, I just remember,
I
and
am returning to town.
as people stop playing them, I think the last one I bought like when I was a kid was Ruby, I think. And then because I had a copy of Pokemon Gold, but I think I remember I left it on an airplane. I'd taken it out.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah, to
Oof.
put in like another one, and I put it in the seat back, and then I didn't realize until we were like in the car or whatever, and I was like, oh no, and my dad called the airplane.
Ouch.
They called the airline, and they're like, no, like we don't even know where the plane's nowhere near here anymore.
And all the while, a stewardess is sitting there playing your Pokemons.
Yeah, man, I had Ho-Oh and like, it's just I was getting all the like the legendary, I think in Gold it was like the legendary dogs or something like that.
Gotta get those legendary dogs.
Yeah, I remember. But then I think it was a year or two ago, I borrowed somebody's 3DS and got a Pokemon X2, I believe it was. Just had an inkling. I was like, man, I want to play some Pokemon. I haven't played in years. My 20th anniversary edition showed up on Monday though, which was pretty cool. I haven't actually played it yet. I think I'm pretty sure my wife is actually playing it right now. How dare she? But yeah, I know, man. Dude, you better not have picked like Squirtle or anything. Yeah, I just, man, it's like I'm like just smiling because it's just that was childhood. Like that was so cool. It's like,
That was the thing for a long time.
I mean, it's like, if I ever have a kid, like one of the things I'd want to get him is the Harry Potter series because it's like you have to read this.
Yeah, it's fundamental at this point.
Yeah, it's the same as like,
Pop culture.
yeah, it's the same as Pokemon. Like you have to, even if they'll never have the same like, just that like, what is this sort of like feeling? Like you still have to, you gotta play it.
My knowledge
You gotta
increases.
respect it.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it, it's been one of the most impactful things, and
I wish I could do that.
I mean, it's probably the reason, honestly, that Nintendo's still in business.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean that and what, Zelda are like the only two things they've got.
And then they'll spit out a Super Mario. 3
Yes.
properties that keep that company afloat.
Yeah. This is pretty impressive, but
Pokemon are cool. I was never able to get my hands on a game as a kid. I don't know. Never panned out for me. I'm glad somebody did.
yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, and I remember because I think all of my friends, we all ended up, because none of us coordinated. It's not like there's a Facebook back then or whatever, but we all ended up getting Red. And so I was like, oh, we need to get Blue. So I ended up, at the time, I owned both Red and Blue. and would just
Nice.
swap them out so that we could get. Because I think it was like, oh shoot, what was it? Was it Onyx? I know like one is Scyther was on blue, I think it was, or red. Is it red? One of the two. I don't remember, but I remember that way we could all have them and we could trade in between them. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's kind of interesting seeing a new generation get into it too. I've seen my nieces and nephews specifically, recently been getting into that, and really kind of jarring for me. I saw them the other day playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards too.
Oh, I remember
It's
that.
like it's wasn't too far ago that I was doing that too. It's just kind of trippy.
Did they have a
And I mean,
Blue
it
Eyes
stayed the
3
course.
What, Blue Eyes Dragon? What was it?
Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Blue Eyes White Dragon. Wow, you had that one. You had that one loaded.
Hey, how about you just shut up?
Wow, quick on the draw with that one.
I did not just emulate Pokemon games. Let me just put it that way. I never got a Pokemon game, but I got a Yu-Gi-Oh game.
I
Always
remember
asked for a
watching. I
Pokemon,
remember
but-
watching. I never. You know, it's funny. No one at my school ever got into Yu-Gi-Oh though.
Really?
I tried, but nobody bought into
It's
it.
kind of the opposite for me. Pokemon faded far more swiftly than Yu-Gi-Oh did.
Oh, interesting. That's yay, middle school politics. But yeah, no, that was the one I remember watching. I got the cards, but yeah, nobody. I mean, I think it was kind of like it was silly because you could buy the starter kit and get a Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Yeah, I gotta reel you in.
Yeah.
Get that taste for those rares so you keep buying more card packs.
Yeah, I do remember I made a trade to get a hold of a Charizard card.
I have a second edition Blastoise still, I think. And I used to have a Charizard, but I think I gave it to my friend.
Oh god, the Charizard that I
I
got,
don't know what I had.
it was so beat up and just such a mess. It had been like full, it was like it had been in the water, but it was a
Gross.
Charizard and I had it. And I remember holding
Yeah,
on to
that's
that
one I
thing
had.
all day, just staring at it.
That's awesome. I think the only rare Pokemon card I got was Mewtwo when they gave him out for free with the Pokemon movie.
And I have that one too.
Did you ever go
I
to
thought it was
the
the coolest.
the events where they would like download Mew to your oh, well, you said you didn't have it.
Yeah, how
Oh,
about you shut up?
I remember they'd set it up. I remember it in the mall. And you'd go over and they just had these like kiosks and just a person would sit there and
I
you just
need to
plug
go
your
back.
game in and like 15 seconds later you had a Mew in your game.
I didn't think I could get any better.
That was it. And you were like, oh.
Sounds like a horrible job, but that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Horrible job.
Just
You
plug
make
it
every
in
kid's
here.
dreams come true.
Yeah, that's why people who play Santa at malls are the happiest people on earth.
Hey,
I mean, for different
I was
reasons.
once Santa Claus.
Yeah, God, I remember that. Yeah, the Pokemon movie. Oh, when Burger King, remember they were giving out like the gold cards in the
Mhm.
Pokeballs?
I went to Burger King all the time. I remember that.
I don't think, you know what, it's funny, I don't think I ever
You know, I'm
got any
thinking
of
back, I
those.
should have sued Burger King for making me obese.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Not all the burgers you ate, that's the Pokemon
No way.
giveaways.
They clearly tempted a young child who didn't understand what he was doing,
Yeah.
other than I was getting Pokemon.
I need the Pokemon!
How many Pokemons do you have?
Yeah, so that's this week's podcast. Definitely make sure to tune in next week, I think. With travel schedule, it may be a little difficult, but be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Twitter. Thanks, everyone.
Boy.